From the sacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Country.
I don't know.
Take a guess.
Lebanon.
No.
Euphrates.
Euphrates? No, that's the name of the river, and that's Euphrates. You're on air.
On air. Aphrodite. What is it?
Aphrodite's not a country. It's a Greek god. Yes.
What is it?
Syria.
Syria! Okay,
Maddie wants her bowl of Syria. Welcome back to episode 2 of Viral Conscience.
Yes.
We are now almost a month in from our first episode and still stuck in quarantine.
I don't know why we took so long to do a second episode.
And my guitar string popped. Someone touched it. Double bummer. The good news is that it's a sunny day, one of the first in New Jersey, which is interesting because we are having flip-flop weather with the West Coast, which is now in probably one of the worst droughts in over a millennia. And we've been having rain in very, very chilly weather, which has made it a bummer, but excellent time to watch some movies.
I love when we have grain.
Grain? Gray rain?
No, it sounded like you said grain instead of rain.
Oh, no. Well, anyway, today we are going to talk about one of the things that unites us, whether we are stuck inside in our rooms on Instagram, or whether we're conversing with diplomats at the UN, or whether we're reading historical texts on religious holidays, or reading poetry in front of an audience. That is language. Maddie, what does language mean to you? First thought, when I say language, what comes to mind?
Speaking.
Speaking. Okay. It was first thought. I didn't want you to think about
speaking.
it. Speaking. And, every answer is a correct answer. When I think of language, I think of culture. And, of course, language touches every single aspect of our society in ways we don't know. The code that's running this software that we're recording off of is a language. And so is the English that we're speaking. And so is the eye contact that we're making. Languages dominate our day-to-day lives. And it's quite exceptional how few people realize it. But, like always, we all have different aspects of language that we take to us. I'll begin. One of the aspects of language that really make me who I am is the fact that I'm trilingual. I grew up in an Israeli household with 2 parents obsessed with food, growing up and speaking Hebrew until I was about 4 in the suburbs of Manhattan in Queens, New York, right by Corona Park. Interesting that it's named Corona nowadays, but for those of you who don't know, that's where they filmed Men in Black, so yeah, I grew up next to a celebrity. And I grew up in a very diverse community, and until the age of 4, I grew up on Hebrew. I went to a Hebrew-speaking daycare. All of my parents' friends spoke Hebrew. All of my childhood friends spoke Hebrew. The first words that I ever uttered were in Hebrew, and so by the time I was about to reach kindergarten and enter the public school system, my caretaker in preschool went up to my dad and pulled him aside one day when I was still in preschool, and she goes, Nir, your son is Matan, right? And he goes, yes. And he goes, well, we need to talk about a education plan. He goes, what do you mean? I thought, he's been doing good in his reading. He's been doing good in his writing. His developmental skills are good. She says, yeah, all that is fine. He's a very good student. He's a very good, he's very good in the playground. He's very good all around. But I think he's going to struggle with English. And if he struggles with English, then he'll be set back for all of his school career.
At least you weren't Thug Matan. She said you did good in the playground.
Oh.
Sorry, keep going.
That's what she thought. Oh. Little did she know, those big tricycles, I'd ride them away when we weren't supposed to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Getting ready for motorcycles.
Got the concept of GTA before GTA came out.
Okay, keep going.
And eventually, as you can see, I picked up on English fairly well. I still have an accent that lingers a little bit. And in the same environment, I picked up Spanish through a Peruvian caretaker who looked over my sister when my parents were working in the city. And that has become also a culture of mine. But all three of those mesh together to make who Matan is. And it's one thing that I certainly don't take for granted. What about language in your childhood do you remember? Or how does language embody into who you are today, Maddie?
Well, okay, so I lived majority of my life in Arizona. Shout out Reese Munson, who was the only person that said he watched it.
Reese, our number one fan.
Yeah. But culture was not as booming. I mean, Hispanic, Latino, like that was kind of our, outside of all white America. But I will say, like, it's very interesting moving here now into like such a culturally based, area, and hearing all the new different sounds, languages, and everything. It's honestly amazing. And I mean, I still act like all giddy when I hear you guys speak Hebrew, because I'm like, oh my god, this is cool. But yeah, I will say I've picked up an accent myself. Now I'm full on Jersey girl.
Yeah.
I'll say water and dog, and like I'll go for a walk. Like I don't know why, but it's now become, well, not water. Water's kind of like overkill, but like I feel like that's starting to become a thing. But other than that, I don't know. Different languages hasn't been like such a pronounced thing until I moved here. Mm-hmm. So it's super like nice and refreshing to finally hear something different and be involved in other cultures aside from white-blooded America.
And can I ask, how has this embrace of new cultures when you moved here and new languages made you feel?
Okay, to be completely honest, of course at first you feel kind of like, well, crap. Because when I moved here, it was like I went from not having like any different cultures except for it was all strictly white Caucasian, like all from America kind of a thing. So when I moved here, and majority of our town is Asian descent and all this kind of stuff, suddenly everybody else was into all these different new things, or they had their own culture, and it felt almost like I had nothing to contribute with them. Mm-hmm. So it was very much like, what I loved though was that everybody is super open about their culture, and teaching and helping you learn about certain things, basically just how it makes them who they are. But it's definitely, now that I've been here for a lot longer, it's now more of a melting pot feel than how it was in the beginning. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you stumble upon it, but its language serves as one of the few visible barriers, or not barriers, but more distinction lines between humans. We often look at ourselves and we say, boy, everybody lives in white picket fenced houses and everything looks the same. It looks like we live in a homogenous society. And suddenly you see languages and you see people clustered around different areas of languages. For all of those are micro-communities, micro-cultures, all separated by language. And one of the things you mentioned, which I want to get into, and obviously we're talking about language in the spoken word, is accents. Accents are what separate those who speak the same language from each other. I have a weird sort of trait where I mimic accents of whoever I'm talking to. So I'll go...
You should do mine.
I am doing yours.
Or now Janet. Do Janet.
Janet!
She's gonna love that.
Okay. But subconsciously I'll encounter people that I meet on the street, or whoever I end up meeting, and I'll begin to mimic the way they speak. So if I'll be speaking to someone, who is Israeli and has a very harsh Israeli accent, then I'll start talking like they're Israeli. I will begin to slowly transgress into this. I had an exchange program at Scotland very early on in high school, and after almost a week I found myself speaking with a slight Scottish accent from the lowlands. And there was a point in high school where a lot of my friends were of Hispanic descent, and so I started transgressing into a more Hispanic dialect, because I was speaking with them so much, and we spent a lot of time together after school. But, that has been less of a shaping factor in my life, only because it's been so fluid. I grew up with a heavy foreign accent, speaking English, and it's been, diluted. And you pointed out that your accent changed. You went from Arizona.
Within 4 years, things that I was saying totally normal American, all of a sudden it was just, it's changed. But that's also because, first off, I was gonna make a joke before too. My dad, who whenever he enters a room with his old buddies, thick Jersey accent, suddenly his normal voice that he talks with us totally normal completely switches when he's in front of other people. And then mine has been so recent, and it's things that I don't even realize that I'm saying, and you catch me on it all the time, on weird little things that I say that I just didn't realize that I said it that way.
Well, there's dad in there too.
Well, yeah.
Man, dude. Come on, man.
That's an Arizona trend though. I feel like a lot of people say dude in Arizona. Also what I find really funny is that there are things that I said in Arizona that kids here did not even know what the hell I was talking about. I think Reese is gonna really love this. But things like how we say waterfall, kids here do not say waterfall. They say air sip, which is the stupidest thing ever. You've never heard of air sip?
Oh, give me an air sip?
Yeah, give me an air sip? That is so dumb. It's literally a waterfall, but it's stupid.
I mean, considering the fact that a waterfall is it's an aspect of nature.
Well, no, but it's also, water falls into your mouth. You don't sip air.
Okay, well, water falls into your mouth when you drink, so why not?
Well...
There's a distinction between a sip and an air sip. But when you're drinking from a water bottle, you get a waterfall.
And then I will say there are things that I don't know if I just said it or well, first off, y'all was always something.
Wait till you get to university.
Oh God, no, we always said y'all and it was more subtle. I'm making it super obvious, but we would say y'all in just a normal kind of way. Now it's yous guys, hey you guys.
Yous guys.
Well, I always go you guys.
Yous guys is old Italian.
That's my mom. My mom always goes, you guys. I say you guys now, but I used to say y'all.
Yeah.
And then I say cotton.
Cotton?
Cotton.
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 And then caramel.
Caramel.
Caramel. And then crayon.
Crayon.
Crayon. I always said crayon. Everybody in Arizona, I feel like a lot of people said crayon too, but now my dad goes, it's crayon. And it just makes me feel weird.
What is your least favorite phrase from any dialect that you know? So it can be Jersey, a specifically Jersey phrase, or specifically Arizona phrase.
Or how about a millennial phrase?
A millennial phrase? Hey, that's language within itself. Trying to communicate to those shells of people is...
I hated lit. I feel like a lot of kids used to say lit, and that always annoyed the crap out of me.
Yeah, that's Gen Z language.
Freaking lit.
It's lit. It's wet.
Ugh, nobody should say wet. It's like saying moist. That makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's so little.
How about you? Chaticha.
Chaticha is only in Hebrew, and that's old speak Hebrew. I was talking to my cousin who's my age. I have a cousin who's exactly my age, who lives in Israel. Most of my family lives in Israel, and there's a huge distinction between our two cultures. Mm-hmm. He's obsessed with soccer. Goes out to drink, every Friday night with his friends. Open shirt. Mm.
Like you.
Now he's in... No. Funny. Now he's in the military, but I was talking to him when we were, I don't know, back 3 years.
You need to pause.
I need to pause?
Noi!
Podcast.
Oh.
Do you want to say hi? She can't even open your door.
Hi, podcast.
And then we'll be hearing Idan boom on the floor soon.
Okay. What did you want?
I had a revelation that me with the girl filter on Snap looks like Matan with the girl filter.
Are you saying we look alike?
With the girl filter, yeah.
Yikes. Just kidding.
Back to what you were saying.
Back to what I was
I
saying.
don't remember. Big shirts, open.
Huh?
Open
Yeah,
shirts.
but and I think it was in France, back when we were in France, or I went to Israel, and I went out with his friends, and I said, Eze chaticha. And he goes, that's what my dad says. You don't say chaticha anymore. I go, what do you mean? Because that's old person speak. That's what the old people used to talk about a pretty girl. I go, what do you use now? He said, use kusit. I go, what does that mean?
Kusit?
Kusit. And he told me what it meant.
What's it mean?
It means like a whore. And there you have the clear distinction between our two cultures. So I stick to chaticha.
You have to explain what chatiha means.
Chaticha?
Yeah.
Chaticha means like a pretty girl.
Piece of ass.
No, it's not what it means.
I thought that's what it was before.
No, that's what Don told you it was for you to get upset when I called you that.
Yeah, well, you're calling other girls in France chatiha.
Yeah.
That was also like 3 years ago.
It was way before I met you. So yeah. Yes. Now, the sad thing is that the spoken word is slowly fading out and becoming homogenized. In the era of technology, everything seems to kind of mesh. People lose their distinctions. You can translate any sentence in Google Translate. There's no point in learning another language when you can just, hop a phrase into Google Translate that's in Urdu and translate it into English and learn that it says, I love ice cream. But also, languages are being forgotten. There's a culture in a language in the Canary Islands, which is a territory of Spain off the coast of Africa, where there's a minority population that speaks through whistling to communicate long distances because it's very mountainous. So in order to communicate long distances, they need a frequency high enough to pass through the mountains, and they were able to achieve that through whistling.
I could never do that.
Now there are only about 2 people that speak that. Where 100 years ago there might have been 70, if not more. And that's, all getting lost as people start to move from their distinction.
That would be kind of... But see, something like that is also... That's a change in the times. There's always going to be something changing just based on,
But it's not just a change in the times.
It's
It's specifically now. From the start of the Gregorian calendar, at 0 AD, that's like the day after, Jesus Christ died, there were thousands of languages. And of course they came and went as, societies were conquered by Persians or, the Crusaders or whatever, the Romans, the Byzantines. But a lot of those subcultures still remained. Right? There was a lot of integration, but people kept language. But now that we're in an era of technology and everyone is connected, even people in the most remote regions of the world are connected, we don't need languages anymore. Everyone can speak the same language because everybody's connected. And so, as language loses its significance, there are fewer and fewer people trying to preserve it. And so we begin to lose a lot of the stories and a lot of the history that makes certain people who they are. We're becoming white picket fenced houses.
That's sad.
It is sad. The good news is that, like we established earlier as well, language is not just spoken word. Language comes from behavior. Language comes from clothing. Language comes from the code in your computer. Language comes from what you write online, how you write it. And so as these languages are dying, other languages are coming to life. So with that, I ask the question, how has your interactions in your life been with languages other than spoken word?
Boof. Well, definitely clothing. Some of the... So my dad does a lot of... he's a videographer. And he does a lot of things in the city, which is... a lot of the things that he ends up doing is religious-based ceremonies and stuff like that. So a lot of the Asian-based cultures, they wear these amazing garbs and they dress all it's gorgeous, the colors and everything, and they do their religious ceremonies for marriages and the different ways that how they have to do the tea ceremony at one house and then another ceremony at the other, and just seeing all these different things, like the different clothing that people wear is like amazing. And even all the like Indian descent wearing their clothes too. It's just really cool seeing the different clothing that you get from different cultures, and how it could be kids from school where they wear exactly what any other kid wears, but then all of a sudden when you get to the ceremony and it's something that is about your culture, you change and you're in this amazing, like, majestic, old, like, outfit. It's really cool.
Yeah, entirely. I mean, even it's a visual language. Even in our culture, you know, in the wealthy Northeastern American culture, everything you wear says something about you, right? You wear a shoes with a given color and a given symbol, and people go, okay, he paid a lot of money for this. He's attempting to show a wealthy status.
Supreme.
Yeah, well, that's what it is, right? It's a red logo, and other people register, okay, you know, this guy is attempting to show off wealth. And so these visual cues that we pick up everywhere represent something different. And of course, that differs from society to society. Some, microphone move. Very cool.
Sorry. Keep going.
You know, some cultures have weddings where there's a lot of color. You know, there's bright oranges, there's bright pinks, there's greens, there's purples, like a royal purple, there's gold, and then some cultures are very black and white. White is seen as very pure and very, you know, innocent, almost like a virgin. That's why you wear white in weddings usually, to show your innocence. So, that's just a little tidbit that the church doesn't.
And then you can also, you know, wear like alien versions. Have you seen all the creepy, like, weird wedding ceremonies that are happening? I mean, they're cool. They're really cool wedding ceremonies. I'm not bashing
I don't
them.
need people in alien costumes coming to my house with burning torches.
The other day, my dad did a wedding that was purely Halloween themed, which was so cool, first off. But they were dressed as Sally and Jack Skellington. It was really cool. Sorry, I just had to put that out there. Keep going.
I want to take you to our leader for making fun of our culture.
There have been alien-themed weddings, which would be awesome. It would be out of this world.
And I think we are coming short on our time, but I want to end with more of a note that is reflective of this and what most people experience, which is media, specifically social media, and how the language, both the written word, the visual cues, everything that goes into social media kind of affects the target generation, Gen Z.
You should give some words.
What do you mean?
I always say boof. That's like a new thing I got.
I mean,
Boof.
yeah, but it's also like a mind-blowing thing. Just, you know, put in letters that include vowels. But what I was going at is that social media has a particular set of languages that that attempt to dictate popularity and status. Everybody searches for the best caption, just the right amount of hashtags, just the right positioning with your camera, just the right lighting, because that says everything about you.
I thought you were going with the language in it. Because people have been making some really weird words.
No. I'm talking about social media as a whole entity in itself.
I love how long it takes for people just to figure out a caption. And then after a while, they just go, let's just put emojis.
But it's language. It's like we said with the clothing. It's a way of representing yourself and communicating, which is what language is, who you are to the world.
Would you say that me sending you a TikTok and you replying with a TikTok is a form of communication?
Yes, it is. I wonder what you're going to put in. Asterisk wildly beats her chest. Nicole's asterisk. But yeah, even with TikTok today, it's a whole segment about, what people want to see and what satisfies people's urges. And it all comes in language. People convey messages with the big, those like text bubbles when they're like tapping them on the screen and everything. But like language, it's a much faster changing, mode of communication.
Well, and on top of that, with everything going on right now, with how, the world is right now, main form of communication has to be done online. Like, you can't, like, right now, we honestly should be sitting 6 feet away, but we're not going to do that.
We are sitting 6 feet away, are you kidding me?
What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, 6 baby feet.
But, like, a lot of, with a lot of my girlfriends, like, I have to, talk with them through FaceTime. I can't see them anymore. Or we communicate through DMs. Or, like, it's just crazy, like, how at first, you're totally fine with, oh, I don't feel like hanging out today, I'll just FaceTime them instead. But now we've gotten to the point where it's like, we have to do it like this, so it sucks. Because now you're like, oh, okay, I did want to communicate with them in person, but now I can't. Now I have to use, the computer or the phone. Or it's definitely now a bigger thing that we have to communicate.
It's a sign of the times. And, when I was speaking at the panel, that's what I said. People asked, how do we ensure that,
Shout
behaviors...
out Matan, who did the Google panel thing. Shout out.
Thank you.
Just a subtle drop.
Thank you very much, Maddie.
You're welcome. Okay, you can go.
Business executives were asking, well, how do we ensure that, behaviors that are used to, that we want to have done are, in continuation? How do we ensure that people continue to bake like they're doing now that they're at home? Or, starting their own gardens, or, taking time to be with family now that they have the chance to do it. And the answer, which, were posed by a bunch of the panelists, was virtual community. Mm-hmm. Using social media to reinforce these things, using the language of social media to help people, keep track and continue to do what they want to do. I think it bodes the moral of our story, now that we're drawing to the end of our episode, that language is all around us, and even if we notice it and we don't, it's what defines how we interact with other people. It defines who we are, it defines our culture, it defines our background, it defines, how we portray ourselves. Language is everywhere.
We're literally doing a podcast.
Speaking languages, using a language to post our podcast, and conveying a certain language to other people.
You should end it in Hebrew.
I'll end in Hebrew?
Yeah.
Sure. I think I need to first, end with a very radical statement following like last time.
Like last
So the moral of the story is we need to take down the system, establish our own utopian language where we only use our pinkies to talk. And then, we'll all live happily ever after and find world peace.
In Hebrew now.
Same thing?
Yeah, same thing, all in Hebrew.
בסדר גמור. אז כדי לעשות שלום עולמי, אנחנו צריכים להוריד את כל האנשים ואת כל האנשים עם הרבה כוח בעולם, להתחיל לדבר עם שפת העתיד רק עם האצבעות שלנו, ורק דרך השפה הזאת נצליח להוציא שלום עולמי, ושכולם יהיו שמחים לכל החיים.
It's a lot longer than
כי אני שכחתי את המילים שאני צריך. אני עדיין ילד אמריקאי.
חתיכה!
See you all next time on Viral Conscience.
Bye!
Bye!